Hello friends, welcome to this video where we'll be discussing about the ACCS anesthetics training basically, and to enlighten about this further, I've got a very good friend of mine, Dr. Claire Malone, who's a ACCS anesthetics trainee here in West Midlands, and we would be discussing, how to get into training, what like the process, and how did Dr. Claire get into training, what are the residency years, and basic chit chat what we would like to do. So watch this video till the end. And hi Claire, welcome.
Hi.
So please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm an ACCS anesthetics trainee, currently in my second year of specialty training. As Aman's already said, I'm training in the West Midlands. I did my medical school years here and my foundation years here, and then chose to stick around for specialty.
Great. So Atkesh, congratulations for being into the training program. So why anesthetics? Why ACCS?
So first off, the anesthetics choice, because I really like being hands-on with patients. I liked that the job that I would do as a trainee in terms of the skills that I would learn, and the things that I would do in my day-to-day in terms of being in theatre, will all be things that I still do as a consultant. I like hands-on procedural skills, which in anaesthetics there are loads of, because you get to do lots of IV access, you get to do lots of intubations, sort of lots of extra monitoring in terms of arterial lines and central lines and things as well. There's also some pretty fun bits of kit that you get to have a play with in anaesthetics, sort of looking at the different types of scopes and things that you use. And I also like working in team environments, and theatre, very good ones of those. And then the reason why I chose the ACCS programme was because through my training as a foundation doctor in the UK, I didn't get any A&E experience. And something that I'm considering in terms of sort of future down the line, in terms of specialty, was wanting to do some trauma anaesthetic work. So I thought for that, then the A&E experience would be really helpful, and also it would give me a year of A&E in acute medicine as well, just to sort of, give me a good foundation for lots of medical concepts that would be useful to me in anaesthetics.
Thanks, Claire. So please tell us a little about how can someone be into the ACCS anesthetic training basically? What do they do?
Okay, so the first thing you'll need to do is set up an account on a platform called Oriel. That's quite easy and simple to do. And then you sort of wait for when the job adverts come up, which I think this year will be the start of November. And then you have sort of a couple of weeks to get all your application information uploaded, get all your evidence uploaded that they ask you for, sort of sort out your references, get all your employment details uploaded, and then you submit that. And then once you've submitted that, then you'll get a number that allows you to apply to sit the MSRA exam, which sort of happens February time. The MSRA exam isn't a massively difficult exam. It's sort of about a similar standard to medical school finals, I would say. But it's worth putting the marks in, because anaesthetics trainees tend to get very high marks on that exam. So it's worth putting the effort in to do well, because that will come up as part of your final score for your application once you've done the interview. If you get a good enough MSRA score, then you get shortlisted for interview. We'll talk a bit more about that later, but then you'll get your interview date and time, which will happen sort of in March. And then towards the end of March and the beginning of April, then you'll start getting job offers through, hopefully. And then you can either choose to accept or wait to upgrade, or to not accept if that's what you decide. And then sort of through that time period, there are different deadlines of when you either have to confirm or reject your job offers.
All right, great. Could you give us a little, idea about the interview per se?
So the way the interview worked for me was that there were 2 interviewers present, and mine was all done virtually as well because I applied during COVID. But it was 2 people, and it's sort of a fairly informal interview in lots of ways, sort of quite a general interview. They'll sort of ask you to talk about what jobs you've done through your medical career so far, why you want to do anaesthetics. They asked me sort of about who my inspirations were, and then they sort of asked me what qualities did they think that I could bring to the anaesthetics profession. So sort of a slightly different way of asking what qualities make a good anaesthetist. They asked me specifically why I would make a good anaesthetist. And then sort of asking me a bit about the audits I'd done, any research work I'd done. They also asked me to talk about my interests outside of medicine as well, sort of what I do in my free time, and sort of like what my proudest achievements were and things. And then I'll talk a bit more about sort of specific hints and tips for the whole thing later.
So when you say about, the achievements outside medicine, can we actually bluff, or what do you say?
I think I would always say, stick to truth, because they're quite good at working out if you're fibbing or not. They're quite good at working out sort of how truthful you're being. The thing that I would say though is that they're not necessarily looking for you to be a world champion or have competed at the Olympics or have competed nationally for a sports team or anything. They just want to know that you've got interests outside of medicine, whether that be that you enjoy cooking or baking, or whether you enjoy sort of doing bits of crafts, or whether you've done sort of volunteering work in a school or whatever it may be. They're not looking for sort of the massive big sort of what might be considered the big impressive things. They just want to know that you do things outside of work that make you a well-rounded individual, and that sort of add to your skill set. Because one of the important things as an anaesthetist is that you are relatable, because you're working with patients when they're in a very highly stressful situation. So your ability to talk to them about things and your ability to keep them calm and all of that sort of stuff will all relate in.
So you should have a sense of humor, that's what you're saying then.
Yeah, I would say so. Everyone has their own way of going about it and how they show it, and obviously that's fine because everybody's different and the way they relate to people is different. But yeah, I would say having a sense of humour in your way, shape or form is a
So
good
what
thing.
would you suggest? Should we gather some evidence before getting into anesthetic training? For instance, if someone is working in ED and wants to do anesthetics, is there any specific set of evidences that they need to gather?
I think as long as you're sort of, showing interest to get involved in stuff, then that is the main thing really. I managed to successfully apply for training without having done an anaesthetic specific audit, and without I did an elective in anaesthetics at medical school, but I hadn't done an anaesthetics rotation sort of post-grad or anything like that. So I think as long as you can show them that you've got a good understanding of, say, particularly with the research and the audit stuff, as long as you can show them that you know how an audit works, that you know how research works, that you know how information governance and things works, then you don't need to worry about making it anaesthetics specific per se. The best advice I can give on what evidence to start gathering up is that there will be a person specification provided, and that can be found, I think, on the Health Education England website. And on that, they have their person specification, and it's the same one for ACCS and for core anaesthetics training. So you can have a look through that, because they'll have a set of criteria that they're working towards, and see if you can find pieces of evidence that can match to that. So whether it is the research and the audits that you've done, or whether it's, if you've done an intercalated degree or extra master's qualifications or whatever it might be, sort of making sure you can find your degree certificates. If you've got evidence of sort of having done extra postgrad things, like if you've got any ATLS certificates or anything extra that would, sort of show sort of a specific set of clinical skills, then that would always be helpful. And then I think as well, just going through that person specification really, and seeing how much stuff you can map towards that person spec.
All right, great. So what do you think, or what would you say about the training per se? How long is this anesthetics training in the ACCS curriculum basically?
So on the ACCS programme, the anaesthetics SHO years, as they call them, so the core training years, that programme is 4 years in total. So you'll do your first 2 years of ACCS training, which is the same for all the ACCS specialties, where you'll do 6 months of A&E, 6 months of acute medicine, 6 months of anaesthetics, and 6 months of intensive care. And then sort of after those initial first 2 years, then you'll go and do sort of just anaesthetics and ITU specifically after that. And then sort of once you get to the end of that stage and you've passed some postgrad anaesthetics exams, then your ST applications are completely separate, and you'll do that through your final CT4 year.
So getting into ACCS anesthetics is just the core training.
Yeah.
You have to reapply for the higher specialty training, is it?
Yeah, you do.
All right.
Yeah.
So Claire, what would be your take-home message for the guys and girls who are planning anesthetics and got no idea where to begin?
Yeah. So I'd say the first thing is that in terms of gathering evidence, make sure you've done it nice and early. Like I say, they're pretty good at sort of giving you a couple of weeks once the application window's opened to get anything uploaded that you need, so you have got a bit of time, but just get reading that person specification and make sure that you can start mapping things towards it. And I'd say the big one as well is making sure you've got your references sorted. They don't have any sort of specific guideline from what I can remember about who should be your reference, but it's usually a good idea to have sort of a clinical or educational supervisor or someone that you've had sort of that more mentor, who's been more of a mentor to you through your career, that knows you well. They don't have to be anaesthetics related. You won't get penalised any points if they're not, so don't worry about that bit specifically. And in terms of the interview as well, they will sort of ask you, sort of like I say, one thing that they asked me was, why would I be a good anaesthetist? So if you're going to talk about things like why you're good at working in a team, then just make sure you have a backup evidence for why you're good at working in a team. So sort of think in advance of your examples for that. Same goes for things like if you're going to talk about how you might show good leadership qualities, just make sure you've got an example of that. And they'll also want to hear about sort of clinical scenarios that went well, clinical scenarios that maybe haven't gone so well, and how you dealt with that and how you reflected on it. So just make sure you've got those examples ready and that you can explain those sort of quite concisely within sort of 30 seconds or so, so that you can answer the question and show that you know the question that you've been asked and sort of how to answer that well, but also that it then will give you time to move on and talk about other things that the interviewers will want to be able to show that you're able to do. Their goal is to get the most information out of you possible, and to show you off as the best candidate possible. They're not there to try and catch you out. They want to sort of try and show you off at your best. So yeah, if you're giving those nice, concise answers, they'll be able to get through more things with you.
All right, Claire, thank you so much for the valuable insight into ACCS anesthetics. Guys and girls, if you got any questions, just drop in the comment below. Thanks, Claire. Bye-bye.
Bye, Aman.